so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much.
Hello, all you positive heads out there. Thanks for tuning your beautiful brainwaves into another episode of the Positive Head Podcast, where we are firmly convinced that creating success and happiness is rooted in understanding the ultimate nature of reality and the fact that as human beings, we are all immensely powerful fractals of the one and only source consciousness, which creates and animates all things. Now, of course, understanding this powerful truth is one thing. Applying this incredibly empowering wisdom to everyday life? Well, that's another, which is exactly why we provide you with a fresh serving of soul food for thought 5 days a week to help constantly remind you of what matters most. You are it. And I'm your host, Brandon Beecham. I'm the reflection and extension of you who will be here each Wednesday interviewing a different consciousness changemaker. And on the other 4 weekdays, leading the way to ensure that your perspective is consistently expanded, your vibration is constantly elevated, and your heart is overflowing and full. Also, this episode of the Positive Head Podcast is being brought to you thanks to the support of Gaia. If you're not familiar, Gaia is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content online, and you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. All right, all you positive heads, welcome back. It's a magical Monday here in the studio as I record, as I get the pleasure and honor to connect with you guys yet again. Going to take some questions from listeners today. Going to read a little itty bitty short story that I love, hadn't thought of in a long time, but this question made it pop into my head and I thought, you know what? I should share it. And so I'm going to do it. Turns out I can do what I want around here. You can do what you want where you're at as well. And that's a good thing. Before I do jump into the stuff of today's show, the topics, the couple things I'm going to touch on, I would like to give a shout out to our iTunes reviewers in other countries. I just learned that iTunes has separate systems for like Canada, for example. Someone from Canada wrote me and said, "Hey, do you see the reviews from Canada?" And he sent me a screenshot and there was like 20 some reviews, which I don't see being in the US. So it's like, what an interesting setup iTunes, Apple has decided on. Like, why would you have them separate like that? I don't know, but it is what it is. And so there's 20 some people who maybe reviewed in Canada and who knows how many else in other countries that I haven't ever seen your reviews if I'm not in your country. And therefore that explains why I haven't read them. So I just want to give a blanket thank you for taking the time to review wherever you are. If I haven't reviewed, it's not because I'm prejudiced to people who aren't in the US. I just don't see your reviews. Thanks to Apple's setup. So that being said, you guys can always write me directly if you have questions or feedback or anything like that through positivehead.com. Of course, I love getting questions as well, as you're going to see today when I address one. And also, the Positive Heads Facebook group crossed over 3,000 lovely, magical P-heads connecting, sharing, uplifting one another. So if you guys aren't on the Positive Heads with an S Facebook group, definitely check it out. It is continuing to grow every day, and I love seeing you guys in there, supporting one another, asking questions for the show through there as well. And absolutely exciting to see that continue to take on a life of its own. And that's really what I wanted to do is with this whole show. It's like just putting this information out there, letting, creating whatever level of platform to bring people together that I could. And what a great way to do it with Facebook already has everything built in to do that. I'm going to expand on that platform with the forthcoming Positive Head app that I'm super excited about. And you guys will be hearing more about that soon. But anyway, moving right along, in regards to the reviews I can see, I had a review by DGiorgio90, and it was titled, "It's Good." And the rest of it says, I like it. It was 5 stars, though, so thank you, D. Georgie, for taking the time to review. And certainly that helps us to reach new people as well. And I like how direct and to the point you are. And I like you, too. Now, so because that was so short, I'm going to read one more. This one is a little bit more lengthy, and it's by LL Smooth J. Anyone with the name LL Smooth J, of course, has to have a lot to say, right? Because that would just not live up to the name. You got to have some smooth words for me. So, inspiring, uplifting, and almost guaranteed to make you a better person is the title. I'm a fairly new listener to the Positive Ed podcast, and this is the first podcast I've ever reviewed on iTunes, but I feel that the host, Brandon Beecham, and his guests have made significant enough impact in my life that the very least I can do is give a review. I'm a 24-year-old forever student, aren't we all? And I feel like I truly begin to awaken into becoming more in line with my higher self around 19 to 20 years old. I feel like I've gone through waves of personal growth, more growth in the spring and summer, slower in the fall and winter. And before I found this podcast, I was definitely in a spiritual rut. Brandon and his guests have brought me back on track with their wisdom and universal truths. I'm so grateful that I just typed in the word positive and I found so much more than I ever expected. Brandon's commentary is very much in line with what I believe. Even though I have come a long way, I still feel as though I am a young soul trying to navigate this reality and figure everything out, yet there is no way I could ever actually figure everything out. I really look up to him and his guests, as well as their mature perspectives on self-love and the universe. For many years, I've really wanted to focus my life around service to others, and I get down sometimes because I'm just a student. I study and I train so hard to someday dedicate my life to service to others as a speech therapist. This podcast makes me appreciate and understand how I can provide service to others on a small scale as well. My new mantra is, how may I serve you? This podcast allows me to stop and think even more in the times I need it most. In recent years, I've gained anxiety and my panic attacks have gotten worse. I think this podcast is allowing myself the ability to understand how I can self-regulate myself even better. I'm always looking to become a better person, and it truly is a daily conscious effort to be a better person. And I firmly believe that this podcast brings me closer to the person I've always wanted to be. Thank you so much for your guidance on my spiritual path and the paths of thousands. I'm deeply grateful for your service to others. Oh, thank you, LL Smooth J. That was definitely a smooth delivery indeed. Definitely lights the fire in my heart to get that feedback from you. And one of the things you said made me think of a quote I love by Gandhi. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. And it seems like you are getting that. And I would just point out something that just popped out to me to be aware of. You said, I'm only just a student. Like, that's not, we're all students. As I said earlier in your review, I always say on this show, we teach best what we most need to learn. And so I'm a student as well. And there's nothing wrong with being a student. Certainly be aware of your perspective. You notice how people's words give away kind of their perspective and how they're thinking. So there's some things in here that I'm seeing that are sort of, you're getting down on yourselves because I'm just a student and, sort of belittling yourself. So be really aware of that in your practice. And I know it's a practice, to really come into the next greatest and greatest version of ourselves. It's like, I think it's a yoga practice, not yoga perfect, right? So we're getting it. It's a daily conscious effort, but just be aware of some of this self-talk. There's nothing wrong with where you're at. And there's certainly nothing that's means you've got to stay where you're at. If you want to put being a student on hold and transition into something else, you certainly can do that in any given moment. So you get to be a student, and that's a blessing because you're choosing it, right? So just a little food for thought there. And otherwise, if you guys haven't reviewed on iTunes, please take the time to do RT Duto. Oh, it's Monday. I've only had one cup of coffee. I think I need a second. Please take the time to do so. And I will love you long time and definitely appreciate your efforts in completing the circle of love. And it helps us to reach new people. As, by the way, LL Smooth J pointed out, he typed in positive. He found the show. Why? Because the show is popular and coming up high in the search results. So that being said, let's see. What am I going to address? Oh, someone wrote into me a show last week. I was talking about my special needs aunt and my special needs uncle that I never met, my mom's twin, and I used the word retarded. And the person wrote in and said, hey, I was shocked you use that word. There's better words, like, and you're right. There is better words. It's not something that I consciously thought of. Honestly, it's a word that was taught to me as a child where it wasn't considered like this is a word we shouldn't be using because it's been used in a derogatory way so much that it's, it just has a bad juju with it, right? I get that. And I acknowledge that. And so my apologies if that word was taken, in a way where someone thought I was being derogatory, because I certainly wasn't. It was, like I said, it was just like not really thinking about it. And it's in my subconscious from childhood. That's the word to use, And trust me, I come from a family who is very sensitive to special needs. It's a lot of it in my family. So anyway, but the thing that it also brought up for me that I feel is really, really important is, and this person, by the way, didn't get deeply offended. I think there was a little bit of put offness for sure, but not like they were deeply offended or anything like that. But a lot of times we look, and people in general, mankind, right, where we're at in our current state of affairs in this world, people are looking for opportunities to be offended. Oh my gosh, there, I found it. I got it. I got what I'm looking for. There's something I can be offended about. You tripped up. That's bad. Here's why you're wrong. And like I said, once again, just to reiterate, the person that wrote in, not saying that their energy was like that. It was a little bit of, like I said, kind of shock and put off and, confusion. And, it's very important that we don't use anyone else's, even if I was being derogatory, let's not use it to ever allow us to be offended, right? Or lower our vibration. You can take that feedback and it may change the way you view me and say, oh, wow, this person isn't quite what I thought. But let's just be really, really conscious of that, because it's something I know I have to do myself, check myself all the time, judging, or being offended. I think of the Rumi quote, if you are annoyed by every rub, how will your mirror be polished? So you're going to have people that come to you who are being derogatory and are, playing these roles in a way that's, much, in my case, it was somewhat harmless and unintended and coming from a good place. So when you're looking at what I was saying, what was my underlying message? What was I trying to deliver? There was no derogatory energy there. Certainly not ill-intended or anything like that. So what is the underlying intention of the person? Always kind of go to that and try and feel the energy at the root. And then if someone is being derogatory, let's be really, really careful to not allow it to cause us to react in a way that lowers our own vibration, right? You can instead sort of look at it like amusingly, look at that, look at this sideshow over here. I'm not taking the bait. I'm not going to react and get pissed off and upset and offended and all those things. It doesn't mean you won't take actions to maybe separate yourself from that person or take actions to support things that go in an opposite direction. But it's back to that whole being against nothing and for something. And so it's just, these sorts of things pop up all the time. And so I just thought I would use this as an opportunity to speak on my misuse of that word. And then also, kind of come back to this topic that I know we'll come back to over and over and over and over again, not using other people as an opportunity to get offended. Because when we're doing that, we have sort of stepped out of our vortex, if you will, right? We're no longer flying high vibrationally. So, and that's the most important thing. That is the aim always. How do I keep my vibration elevated? And if it's not, that's okay too. It doesn't mean you won't ever have a negative moment and you should curse them when you do. You can own it and live it fully. It has its purpose too. But the question is, what do you want to do next? And the question and the answer to that for me is, I want to have the path of least resistance that feels as floaty and juicy and joyous as possible. Doesn't mean I don't actually enjoy feeling down sometimes too. This is something, there's a lot of talk about this, trying to have a positive mind state is a negative thing, or you shouldn't do it. And, all these things, it's like, well, for me, I have moments where I can feel sad and things like that. And if you're really honest with yourself, you can see that there's joy there too. You do it because you enjoy it at some level always. And so, I'm not saying you'll never have those moments, but for the most part, I'm steering for the clearest path down the stream. I picture going down like a sort of the rapids, right? Where it's like fast moving water and lots of rocks. I want the clearest path possible for myself. Doesn't mean I won't hit a rock every now and then. And I'll love that rock as I do. But that's my story. I'm sticking to it on that. Let's see. I want to read here quickly a question that someone wrote in from a listener, Nicole. And Nicole wrote in and said, "Hey, Brandon, just sitting here thinking about a recurring friendship issue that keeps happening. And I think I know what I need to change, but seem to keep getting hurt. With certain friendships, I will get very close to that person and them to me. We'll do everything together and I get very attached and I assume they are to me as well. After a period of time, I usually start offering to do a lot for that person. And then when they seem a bit off or distant, I feel so sick inside. I worry they don't feel the same anymore and my heart really breaks. I just had to let go of a friendship like this because this person started using me and taking me for granted and it was affecting my family. I wondered what your thoughts might be on this. I listen to your podcast every day and it has changed my life. I should also mention that this has happened about 5 times in my life. I do have friendships that are very strong and long-standing and none of these issues with them. It reminds me of another friend of mine, Melanie, who wrote in or actually messaged me personally and, was asking about advice, a similar kind of thing, concern about a relationship and fear of losing that person. And even though that isn't happening, it hasn't happened yet. There's this like fear that keeps popping up, and it's sort of it's starting to affect things, right? Actually, I'll just read Melanie's text and my response. I'm having trouble being attached to someone and it's ruining my behavior towards them. I've tried meditation, tried books, tried keeping my distance, but honestly can't get rid of the fear of abandonment that hasn't even happened yet. I've become overly possessive and I literally don't know how to fix it. It's like everything I was expert at this time last year has changed. I don't know how to get back to the peaceful, detached way. And my response was, self-love is the only solution to any of these sorts of issues. Coming to a place where you are at peace, just being with yourself. You will lose him. It's not if, but when. This goes for all of us and everything we care about. But the impermanence is what makes it all beautiful. We must learn to relax into being alone and trusting that whatever we appreciate in someone or something we lose will always come around in another form. In this way, being alone is always only temporary. This is the process of eternity. Separation also makes reunification something that we can always look forward to with a soul we love. Separation, unification. This process continues on eternally. Once we get used to it and understand it, we can actually learn to love, appreciate, and enjoy the ride. Let go of everything and watch it come back. Relax into the process that is your life. So you have to look at this stuff and how much of it is self-fulfilling prophecy, right? You've got a story here. Nicole's got a story of what is going to happen or what has happened many times. It's 5 times now. It's getting stronger. This theme that is my life, this thing that defines me, right? And what I said to my friend Melanie is the same that I'll say to you. At the end of the day, you have to find self-love and self-sufficiency. You are a fractal of source energy. Source is one. It is all things, God, higher self, whatever you want to call it. There's only one of us. And as a fractal of source, you have to move into a place where you're really comfortable being alone because you're symbolically a reflection of that whole, which is ultimately alone. So what does source have to do? It has to become very comfortable being alone and falling in love with itself, which is what it's doing as taking all these physical forms, right? It's a way to do that even. So, it's a beautiful story when you think of it from that way, right? I have to learn self-love. The number one thing we're all here to learn, I say often, and I believe it wholeheartedly. Learning self-love. There's only you at the end. People are going to get on the train of your life. People are going to get off at stops, get back on. Sometimes they're there 5 years. Sometimes they're there 50 years. Sometimes they're there 5 minutes. You fall in love, your soulmate, your twin flame. Guess who it is? It's you. The number one soulmate you have is yourself. Fall in love with yourself. Relax about the story that you're telling. And once you can do that, you're going to find the results that you're having are changing. Now, the other thing that Nicole said here is, I had to let go of a friendship because the person started using me and taking me for granted, and it was affecting my family. Well, first off, let me say this. No one can use you unless you let them use you. No one can take you. No one can ever use you. Maybe they can take you for granted, but you can very quickly see that and adjust accordingly, non-reactively. Right? Oh, here's feedback. I'm not going to get upset. I'm not going to let it lower my vibration. I have so much self-love. I'm just going to take that information and use it to define what I do next, right? So no one can take you for granted unless you let them. So that's a story that you're telling. You have to love yourself enough, back to self-love, to not allow someone to do that. Say, hold on here. No, this doesn't feel right energetically. Let me explain to you why and how this makes me feel, friend. That's something that we never do. We never get to the root of what's really going on. There's so much dancing around, beating around the bush we all do with each other. And it's something that I really strive to do as someone who maybe over communicates compared to the average person, is let me go to the root of what's really going on here. Let me tell you how this really makes me feel. Let me put you in my shoes. Let me tell you why I'm not going to participate in this thing that makes me feel taken for granted for. And by the way, maybe you should check yourself as to why you're approaching me in this way. People, I think of my brother. So my brother he's a very calm, cool individual. He's got red hair. So he has that moment where, that reputation definitely goes with him, where he sort of will hold things in. Unlike me, he's more introverted. And so he'll hold it in. And then all of a sudden, boom, it's like he lets it out, in a very explosive way. So he talks a lot about, in his own journey, people, being really kind to people, giving them an inch. And then they start taking advantage. And, and then he quotes the movie Tombstone. I forget the character where he hits the bartender and he's like, see, give someone a rap across the beak and you get a little respect around here. And he'll quote that, and it's kind of funny, and I'm not encouraging anyone to hit anyone across the beak or any other bird part that they may have. But, his point is like, having to, kind of put people in their place. Sometimes you have to really step up to people for them to respect you. And certainly not getting violent. That's just a funny little quote. If you guys have seen Tombstone, you might remember the scene. But stand up to people and let them know, hey, no, this isn't cool. I'm not allowing you to take advantage of me. I'm not, and here's how it makes me feel. And by the way, why do you feel the need to do this? And people will respect that. So start telling a new story and start working. I know it's a daily conscious effort. I know we're all working on this self-love thing, on getting to a point where you don't need them, or you're not telling a story of 5 times, 6 times, 7 times. Like you're giving energy to this idea. Just because something's happened to you and you co-created it happening repeatedly doesn't mean you're under any obligation to do so again, unless you start dragging that story and giving it lots of life. It makes me think of another story, as I mentioned at the top of the show, a Zen story, the monk Hakuin and the baby, just the way it is. And they're, of course, these Zen stories are very entertaining and give you a lot of great perspective. I love them. I've read quite a few on the show. And so let me read this one. It's pretty short. There was a monk named Hakuin who was well respected for his work among the people. In the village, there lived a young woman, the daughter of the food sellers. The young woman became pregnant by her boyfriend, who worked nearby in the fish market. When the parents found out about this, they were very angry and pressured her to reveal the name of the father. She wanted to protect the young man and blurted out the name of Hakuin as the father. After the baby was born, the parents took the baby to Hakuin. They told Hakuin that he was responsible for the baby and left the infant with him. Now, keep in mind, this is, of course, a Zen monk, right? He responded, "Is that so?" And he simply accepted the responsibility for the child without further reaction. The monk had no experience with babies, but he began to care for its needs, finding food, clothing, warm shelter. The other villagers became very angry with Hakuin for his offense, and his reputation was trashed. These comments did not affect Hakuin, who continued to put his effort and attention into the care of the baby. After several years, the young woman was filled with remorse. She confessed to her parents the name of the true father. They immediately went to see Hakuin, apologized, and took the baby back with them. Hakuin watched as they returned to their home with the child he had cared for since birth and replied, "Is that so?" Now, this is a great short story that gives you some perspective. I'll read the comments here. I found this on workingwithinsight.wordpress.com, and it says, let's see what their comments are. "Is that so?" reflects the acceptance of what the moment brings. Acceptance in the sense that one responds appropriately to the situation with a calm mind and spirit. There are no calls of fairness or unfairness of being experienced in the task or not, of complaining about a lost reputation, of wishing that it were different. The needs of present are simply addressed. More than the physical situation, it's the spirit of the monk's mind at the initial instant that the situation arises that makes his action so compelling. It is not passive acceptance. There is direct action here. The calm mind allows effort to be fully directed to the situation without dispersal of energy. The same tasks of caring for the baby could also be done with resentment or a turbulent mind. Then there's room for fairness and unfairness, complaining and wishing it were different. Same task, but the energy is completely different. All of these situations are about the reader, not a fiction story about the monk. The situation may be one at work, home, with a friend that brings the same apparent unfairness and inconvenience to an individual at the moment. Responding with a calm or turbulent mind makes all the difference. The calm spirit is within the potential of all humans. Man, this is one that I've worked on really hard and even failed at in the last few days with a longtime friend and employee. And, calmer heads prevail. And, you can have a lot of passionate energy, and a lot of history especially can lead to unfairness and fairness, and here's what you did wrong, and here's, and then it gets back and forth, and really no one ever wins. The truly calmer head prevails, and that's one that I'm working on. I've gotten way better, but I still have my moments, and definitely have slipped off the wagon, so to speak, with getting agitated and not being particularly calm in the last few days. But what's great about it? Today is a whole new day, another chance to turn it. Every moment is another chance to turn it all around. So taking on being inspired by the monk. The monk was just okay with, the monk was popular. I read another version of the story before. The monk was very popular and beloved by the people. Then he was turned on an outcast and had to live outside of town. And then, it's like, and he understands the ebbs and flows, the peaks and valleys of life. And his job is to remain calm, not need anything to happen or not happen. And obviously that is a Zen monk who's attained to a level that many of us still have not. But it is a great example and inspiration. And I hope this helps. This feedback really helps you, Nicole. And otherwise, we're out of imaginary time for today's episode. The good news is there's plenty more where that came from, so I'll be back. In the meantime, I do have a song that seems somewhat appropriate to play for you guys. That references dancing in the rain. And that's really what this monk did, right? He's just dancing in the rain. No matter what, he's at peace. And this song is by Orion, and the song is called Rain. Hope you enjoy. Also, if you're craving more consciousness elevating content, be sure to check out Gaia, which is my personal go-to source for streaming consciousness content on the web, where you can stream an incredible 7,000 plus exclusive videos covering 5,000 years of wisdom. As you all hear me constantly say, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration. And if you're looking to journey deep down the rabbit hole to do so, then Gaia is the best place I know of to do it, period. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out.
I just can't take the